Don't suppose you got a pass anywhere underneath that pretty dress?
No, sir. I belongs to Master Giles, and this here his property.
You assassinate girl?
Well, sir, I can get one.
You ain't going nowhere. Either you gonna show me a pass, or you gonna show me something else.
The movie opens in Virginia in 1809, where Nat is a young enslaved boy who often plays with a white child named Sam, the son of the estate owners. One day, Nat again goes without porridge and suffers from hunger, learning early that privilege doesn't always come with a full breakfast. Seeing this, Nat's father sneaks out at night through the woods to find food, with young Nat quietly following him. Nat witnesses his father being caught by a patrol, searching for runaways, led by the brutal overseer Raymond, who wants to punish the fugitive. The man fights back, seriously wounding one pursuer and smashing a stone over Raymond's head, knowing that if he doesn't resist, his family will pay the price. He is forced to flee, though not before hiding the food he found beneath the floorboards. The kind master who legally owns Nat's family tries to protect his people, but Raymond shoves him out of the cabin and is about to use his knife until the master's intervention stops things just in time. Later, the master's wife, Mrs. Elizabeth, discovers that young Nat can read letters. Surprised, she invites the boy into the house and promises to teach him to read and write while he stays there. This means Nat will live at the estate for a while, even though his mother, Nancy, has no choice but to accept that her son is being taken from her temporarily. Inside the house, Nat sees a luxurious library, and Elizabeth explains that most of the books are for white people, but that there is a special book meant for someone like him, the Bible. She uses it to guide him, hoping to raise Nat as a young preacher. However, just before Sam's father's death, he decides that Nat will be more useful working in the fields instead. With that decision, Nat is sent back to a massive cotton plantation, where he and his mother spend long, exhausting years filling heavy bags with cotton under the unrelenting sun. Yet Nat continues to preach and read scripture to the people working around him, urging them to keep their faith, even as their hands grow raw and their backs begin to break. By now, Sam, the heir to the estate, has grown up as well. Watching all this unfold, Reverend Hall begins to notice something unusual. The workers seem unusually calm and obedient. It turns out Nat's preaching has helped them accept their harsh reality and bury any thoughts of rebellion, which, from the plantation owner's point of view, is like finding a free security system that runs on Bible verses. Meanwhile, Raymond continues hunting runaways. During one search, Nat picks up a toy dropped by a child, but the child's father suddenly attacks him, beating him viciously. Nat finally grabs the man's cane, and the man shouts to Sam, claiming he needs the sheriff because Nat attacked him. Sam, however, defends Nat.
But in the meantime, I will give you to the count of 3 to put your stick down before I give you some real charges to give him when he gets here.
On their way home, Nat witnesses people being sold like cattle. Among them is an 18-year-old girl about to be reduced to nothing more than entertainment for someone else's pleasure. Feeling deep sympathy for her, Nat asks his master to buy her, suggesting she would make a fine gift for the master's sister. Sam steps in, outbidding the others and striking a favorable deal.
$2.75. Sold to that fine gentleman in the back.
When they return home with their new purchase, the terrified girl Cherry lashes out at Nat like a cornered animal until the women of the house restrain her and clean her up. Sam then proudly presents Cherry to his sister Catherine, something Catherine has long wanted. Along with Catherine and Elizabeth, Cherry is meant to move into Catherine's husband's house. Nat says goodbye to his new acquaintance and offers her a small bouquet of flowers. Sometime later, Nat's older brother Hark marries the woman he loves, and the enslaved community gathers for a modest celebration, clinging to joy wherever they can find it. Nat continues preaching, and sometime later, Cherry appears in the church. The moment Nat sees her, he becomes completely flustered, stumbling over his words and stuttering as if his brain suddenly forgot how English works. He is grateful for even a few seconds to speak with the woman he loves. Unable to stop thinking about her, Nat eventually rides out to Cherry's house to confess his feelings and propose. Cherry agrees immediately, and soon the two are married. Around this time, Reverend Hall visits Sam again and explains that neighboring plantation owners are willing to pay good money if Nat uses his sermons to keep their enslaved workers calm and obedient. Thanks to the income Nat brings in, Sam can finally start paying off his debts. Nat's mother and grandmother watch as Nat and Sam depart for these neighboring plantations. Their first stop belongs to a wealthy owner named Rennell, who complains about hard times while cutting costs, by feeding his enslaved workers only once a day. He wants Nat to convince them that heaven is reserved only for those who are meek and completely obedient to their masters. The starving, exhausted people are herded into a barn and forced to listen to biblical passages about submitting to harsh masters. What Nat witnesses deeply unsettles him, making him want to leave as quickly as possible, unable to shake the horror of what he has seen. Meanwhile, Cherry speaks about being taken from her family at just 13 years old. Soon, she and Nat learn they are expecting a baby, while Sam continues to grow richer from the payments for Nat's sermons. Not long after, Cherry gives birth to a daughter, bringing real joy to both of them. Later, Sam and Nat arrive at another estate, but no one greets them at the entrance. Sam steps away to find the owner, and in that moment, a dog is set loose as the local manager, infamous for his cruelty, inspects the fields with a whip proudly in hand. He decides to punish an enslaved man who has gone on a hunger strike. When the man refuses to eat his porridge, the manager's men brutally beat him, severely injure him, and then force the porridge down his throat with a funnel, all happening right in front of Nat and Sam. It becomes clear that these are exactly the kinds of plantation owners willing to pay Sam, because they fear Nat's religious influence even more than guns. Through tears, Nat tries to preach to these broken souls, but instead of his usual message of obedience, many hear something different. A quiet, dangerous call to stand up for themselves, while the white owners completely fail to understand the meaning hidden in his words. Later, Cherry goes out to fetch water and is intercepted by Raymond and his men, who accuse her of wandering too close to the woods. It is painfully clear this is just a flimsy excuse to attack her. At the time, Sam is too drunk to intervene. When he finally learns what happened, his solution is to quietly allow Cherry and Nat to spend the night at his mother's house, where Elizabeth says that God will surely punish those who treated the poor girl so cruelly. Somehow, Cherry survives the assault. Once she regains some strength, she apologizes to Nat, even though she has nothing to apologize for. Nat burns with rage when he learns who abused his wife, but Cherry begs him to let go of revenge. Sam, however, acts as if nothing happened and orders Nat straight back to work. That very same day, Sam hosts a gathering of plantation owners at his house and asks Nat to say a prayer before dinner. No one notices as Nat carefully weaves words about the oppression of the weak into the blessing, subtly pointing to the cruelty surrounding them. Soon after the feast, one of the guests behaves inappropriately toward Hark's wife, Esther, and Sam does nothing to stop it, effectively allowing his servant to carry out the degrading act. Nat tries to reason with his master, only for Sam to threaten punishment for everyone if they resist. Not long after, Esther stumbles out of the house in tears, with Hark rushing to hold her as she cries out in despair, asking where God is now. Later, a libertine shunned by the local churches asks Nat to baptize him. The plantation manager explodes in anger, insisting that a black man cannot baptize a white man. Elizabeth, however, supports Nat, and the ceremony goes forward despite the risk of Sam's wrath. When Sam returns and learns of Nat's defiance, he decides punishment is necessary, especially since Nat has begun openly confronting him about his inhumane treatment of people. Sam orders Nat to be chained and viciously beaten in front of everyone, while Elizabeth struggles to hold back her tears. Nat, battered and bloodied, does not cry out at all. Instead, he wears a numb, haunting smile. They leave him chained to a post until late at night, with the manager warning that if Nat survives, life will only become worse for him. Even then, Nat remains unbroken. By morning, Nat painfully forces himself to his feet and calmly says to Sam,
"Oh yes, sir. I've learned."
Sam, acting as if nothing ever happened, tells him to wash up and return to the fields. Meanwhile, Sam himself sinks deeper into guilt and depression, drowning it all in alcohol, fully aware of how wrong his actions were. Soon after, Nat's grandmother passes away, having been born enslaved and dying enslaved. For Nat, this loss is the final breaking point. After her funeral, he asks his brother Hark to gather their most trusted people. Late that night, 6 men sit together by the fire, joined by a very young boy named Jasper from Rennell's plantation. Nat explains that for every Bible verse used to justify slavery, there is another that speaks of freedom, that good will rise against evil, that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. He points out a truth the masters fear: there are far more enslaved black people than white owners. He reveals that their main objective is to seize the armory roughly 15 kilometers, 9 miles, away, moving from plantation to plantation until they reach the town. Isaac, a fellow enslaved man who learns of the plan, desperately begs Nat to stop, asking if he truly wants bloodshed, the deaths of their own brothers, and possibly even his own wife. Nat remains unshaken, convinced he has been chosen by God. As time passes, Cherry remains bedridden. She has always sensed that an uprising might come one day, but never imagined her own husband would lead it, until it finally begins at Sam's estate. Sam wakes up drunk to find Nat standing before him. Without hesitation, Nat kills him with a single axe blow, then overpowers the manager. Entering his mother's quarters, Nat tells her she will not need to work today because she is free. The uprising ignites as Nat gathers the enslaved people from Sam's plantation and declares,
Your earthly master is gone. You're now free, men and women.
A terrified Isaac cries out, but Nat answers that they are now truly beginning to live, because from this moment on, they will serve God alone and not their masters. Inspired by Nat's words, the group moves from plantation to plantation, striking down those who kept them in chains. When they reach the property of men infamous for torturing workers by ripping out their teeth, Hark personally confronts these tormentors. Young Jasper, witnessing the brutal killings up close, becomes overwhelmed with fear and runs away. Later, on Reynolds' plantation, the rebels are ambushed by armed men after Jasper warns them in advance. Gunfire erupts, and they lose yet another young member of their group. Still, Nat and the others press on toward the town, where they finally face Raymond Cobb's detachment, around 15 men armed with muskets, and the rest with blades and clubs. Though outgunned, the former slaves refuse to retreat. As Nat delivers a short, fiery speech, they charge forward, only for the first musket volley to cut several rebels down, turning the clash into a bloody, desperate fight. During the battle, Raymond wounds Nat and moves in to kill him, but Nat overpowers him and drives a knife into him, killing him at last. The rebels manage to prevail and break into the armory, hoping to find weapons. Instead, they discover crates filled with nothing but rocks. Before they can process the betrayal, a military unit already waiting outside opens fire, killing almost all of the former slaves on the spot. A cannon blast wipes out many more, including Nat's brother Hark, leaving Nat as the only one to escape alive. What follows is a full-scale manhunt, with enslaved black people across the state being hanged or subjected to brutal reprisals. Nat secretly meets Cherry, who cannot even turn her head to look at him, and tells him that the killings will not stop until the authorities capture him. Realizing this, Nat decides to surrender. He walks into the nearest town, where an enraged mob nearly tears him apart until General Child intervenes, insisting on an official verdict. While awaiting execution, Nat spends his final days in jail. When he is finally led through the crowd to the gallows, he is met with curses and even struck by someone in the mob. Given a chance to speak his final words, Nat simply says,
I'm ready.
As the noose is placed around his neck. In that moment, he notices Jasper in the crowd, the same boy who once betrayed them. Years later, Jasper, now an adult, enlists in the Union Army during the Civil War. And though the uprising lasted only 48 hours, nearly 60 plantation owners and their family members were killed, leaving behind a legacy that could not be erased. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next video.